VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you, Gordon Morris, and welcome to Crosstalk. It is our privilege to have you join us today. I would say this, the topic today is going to be a difficult one, okay? But I'm going to share it with you. In fact, I chafe under the fact that I even have to mention this type of thing. It is so egregious, if I'm using a good word there. It is the kind of thing that deals with abnormality that has become a norm in our society. Back in the days of Herod the King, when I was in school, I learned Biology 101, and it talked about the male and the female gender. And of course, we've studied how biology works. And along has come a lifestyle that is abnormal. I mean, it is abnormal. If this lifestyle were to perpetuate, this globe would ultimately someday be void of human beings. It's the issue of homosexuality. And strangely enough, the month of June has become what is known as Gay Pride Month. Now, I know we've talked about this before, but what I have for you today, literally, you may or may not believe this, but you're going to have to listen to it. Because in the beginning of this month, the month of June, the President of the United States, who promised change to our country, ultimately made this video greeting lined up with the month of June. I would like you to listen very carefully to these words.
I've often said that the true genius of America is that America can change. We can pass laws to right wrongs. We can soften hardened attitudes. Our union can be made more perfect. But here's the thing. Change never happens on its own. Change happens because ordinary people, countless unsung heroes of our American story, stand up and demand it. The story of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans is no different. As we celebrate LGBT Pride Month, we remember the activists and advocates who refused to be treated like second-class citizens. People like Jean Manford and Harvey Milk, who marched and protested and believed in a better future. But we also remember the unsung heroes, the millions of LGBT Americans for whom everyday acts have required extraordinary courage. The young people who came out as gay or transgender to their parents, not knowing what to expect. The two moms or two dads who went to an open house or PTA meeting, not knowing how they'd be received. The couple that got married, even if their bosses or neighbors wouldn't approve, at least not right away. Most of these heroes didn't set out to make history, but that's exactly what they did. Bit by bit, step by step, they bent the arc of the moral universe towards justice. Now it's our turn. So this June, let's take some time to celebrate teachers and students who take a stand against bullying, openly gay and lesbian service members who defend our country with honor and integrity, families and friends who have seen their own attitudes evolve. Perfecting our union isn't something we can do in just 1 month, but we can remember those who came before us. We can summon the courage to build on their legacy. And we can renew our commitment, day in and day out, to be the kind of people who make change happen.
Did I hear correctly? These are the people that bent the arc of the moral universe. Did you catch that? These are the people that bent the arc of the moral universe. So we're now talking about morality. And what determines morality? What is the standard of morality? What, by the way, this term that I use quite often, what is your moral compass? or the moral compass of our president? A question that certainly needs to be defined. And this change, this strange immersion of, well, a new type of morality was part of the change package that you voted for and probably didn't even think about at that moment. But when we talk about change, we talk about bending the arc of the moral universe. You know, you bend a fender, you need to get it fixed. You bend the bumper, you got to get it fixed. You bend something, it means it alters it forever unless you replace it or repair it. But now we're shouting the praises of those who have practiced what the Bible calls an abomination, immoral behavior. And the leader of our country and of the free world has now bent the arc of morality. His own words. Those are his words. And, of course, the proclamation of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Pride Month. And here it is, of course, the President of the United States. I could read the whole thing. I don't think I care to. But you heard what he said. And the comment, of course, we see not only coming from the Vice President first, then the President, and now something else comes into the picture. Now, it used to be don't ask, don't tell. And now the Pentagon gets into the act. Let me read this. Associated Press or One News Now. Dateline Washington. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta on Friday thanked homosexual military members for their service as the Pentagon prepares to mark June as Gay Pride Month with an official salute. I wonder if we're going to shoot guns or what? In a remarkable sign of a cultural change in the United States military, Mr. Panetta said that with the repeal last year of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, that prohibited homosexuals from serving openly in the military. Now, serving openly means all of the nuances that occur in the life of a homosexual. Am I to assume that this means the solicitation as well? I don't know. I'm asking the question. And gays and lesbians can now be proud to be in uniform. Now you can be proud of serving your country and be proud of who you are, said Panetta. The defense chief also said he's committed to removing as many barriers as possible to making the military a model of equal opportunity. Well, I'd like you to listen to Mr. Panetta as he raises his voice.
As we recognize Pride Month, I want to personally thank all of our gay and lesbian service members, LGBT civilians, and their families for their dedicated service to our country. Before the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, you faithfully served your country with professionalism and courage. And just like your fellow service members, you put your country before yourself. And now, after repeal, you can be proud of serving your country and be proud of who you are when in uniform. The pursuit of equality is fundamental to the American story. The successful repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell proved to the nation that just like the country we defend, we share different backgrounds, different values, and different beliefs. But together, we are the greatest military force in the world. It also reminds us that integrity and respect remain the cornerstones of our military culture. The Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force implemented the repeal with a focus on respect and individual dignity. As Secretary of Defense, I'm very proud of how we implemented repeal. Going forward, I remain committed to removing as many barriers as possible to make America's military a model of equal opportunity, to ensure all who are qualified can serve in America's military, and to give every man and woman in uniform the opportunity to rise to their highest potential. Diversity is one of our greatest strengths, and during Pride Month and every month, let's celebrate our rich diversity and renew our enduring commitment to equality for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the voice of Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, coming to you from the Pentagon. Now, you heard it. And he said this: we are people with different values. Well, let's talk about different values. When I came to Wisconsin way back in the 50s, there was a story running around about a guy named Ed Gein, who was a grave robber. And his values meant that he would rob graves and the corpses and the things that came out of the... Well, I don't want to go further into that story, except it was, that was his values, after all. I mean, what's wrong with having values like that? And then some years ago, 10 blocks up the street from where we're sitting right now, was Jeffrey Dahmer, whose values were along the same line, homosexuality, but in addition to that, literally the cannibalizing and killing of human beings, dismembering their bodies, and all kinds of weird stuff. But that, after all, we have diversity, right? We have different values. And then, of course, we have, we have people who have different values, even in different venues. There are those whose values mean it's very desirable in their own desire to molest children. We call them pedophiles because it's a moral behavior, or immoral behavior is properly defined. It's molestation, but that happens to be their set of values, and how dare we say anything about that? And then, of course, I don't go from the sublime to the ridiculous here, but bestiality. Bestiality. I mean, this is vile behavior. God says this stuff is an abomination and is sin. But, of course, if we no longer have a moral compass, and we no longer have a God, we have a whole bunch of them, and we can sit here and look at leadership, the highest leadership now in our country, that has literally voted for and has, the legend has it, the allegations has it, that in his previous history, there are reports out, even on YouTube, of people who claim to have engaged in this type of behavior with the President of the United States. These are allegations, but they're out there. One has to say, how far is change going to go? We're going to take a break, and we've got more for you in the next quarter hour. Don't go away. This is Crosstalk, coming away on the VCY America Radio Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation seminar speaker at the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, where did the original people in North America come from?
Chris, the most likely answer is that the American Indians migrated across the Bering Straits from Asia. Apparently, the people that migrated numbered less than 300. From them has come all the variety of tribes that we see in the New World. Some evolutionists dispute that because they believe you need a larger group to keep things from going extinct. But if you take Bible history seriously, you see that small language groups did migrate from the Tower of Babel and spread out all over the world. These were intelligent people with culture and some technology. Perhaps they lost it over the years, but they were intelligent at the start. That seems to fit with the evidence that we find. As always, the evidence fits the back to Genesis truth of creation.
For more information on science from a Christian perspective, visit us on the web at www.icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where we're talking about some of the bizarre and strange changes that have occurred in our country. We voted for change. Did you vote for change? I speak of course, of America. Its majority must have voted for change, because this is what you've got now. Change. And when I think of what is happening here, folks, when I see the moral fabric of our country literally in flames, how do you define morality? I mentioned the allegations that had been circulating about the past of even our president. And again, those are allegations out there. You can even go to YouTube, and there are videos of those who have claimed to engage with certain types of behavior with the President of the United States. It's there. But these are allegations. But now, as we face the future, and we have literally cast aside any standard of morality. You see, God's Word, we're even burning Bibles that were sent to Afghanistan. You burn a Quran or flush it down the toilet or whatever has occurred recently, and you have people dying in the streets. But you can burn a Bible, and you can insult Christianity. I mentioned some time back a local radio station who thankfully took some steps to change it, but a motion picture industry had put together a video. They talked about the Easter Bunny who died for our sins, who died in a helicopter crash. This is the kind of entertainment. It first started out with just a few curse words, and now it's blatant insult. It is castigating anyone that even believes in the Lord Jesus Christ. But you throw away your moral compass, your ship is going to go into the rocks. It's going to go somewhere. Well, I want you to listen to this last statement, again, by the President of the United States on Friday, June 15th. For the fourth consecutive year, the President of the United States held a celebration at the White House and made these remarks. Listen as he speaks.
Well, welcome to the White House, everybody. We are glad all of you could join us today. I want to thank the members of Congress and the members of my administration who are here, including our friends who are doing outstanding work every day. John Berry, Nancy Sudley, Fred Hochberg. Now, each June, since I took office, we've gathered to pay tribute to the generations of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans who devoted their lives to our most basic ideals. Equality not just for some, but for all. Together we marked major milestones like the 40th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, when a group of brave citizens held their ground against brutal discrimination. Together we've honored courageous pioneers who decades ago came out and spoke out, who challenged unjust laws and destructive prejudices. Together we've stood resolute, unwavering in our commitment to advance this movement and to build a more perfect union. Now, I've said before that I would never counsel patience, that it wasn't right to tell you to be patient any more than it was right for others to tell women to be patient a century ago, or African Americans to be patient a half century ago. After decades of inaction and indifference, you have every reason and right to push loudly and forcefully for equality. But 3 years ago, I also promised you this. I said that even if it took more time than we would like, we would see progress, we would see success, we would see real and lasting change. And together, that's what we're witnessing. For every person who lost a loved one at the hand of hate, we ended a decade of delay and finally made the Matthew Shepard Act the land of the law. LGBT who was treated like an outcast. We lifted the HIV entry ban. Because of that important step, next month, for the first time in more than 2 decades, the International AIDS Conference will be held right here in the United States. For every American diagnosed with HIV who couldn't get access to treatment, we put who you are should never affect whether you get life-extending care. Marjorie Hill, the head of the Gay Men's Health Crisis, is here. GMHC has saved so many lives, and this year they are celebrating their 30th anniversary, so I want to give them and all these organizations who work to prevent and treat HIV a big round of applause. Give it up for Marjorie and everybody else. For every partner or spouse denied the chance to comfort a loved one in the hospital, to be by their side at their greatest hour of need, we said enough. Hospitals that accept Medicare or Medicaid, and that is most of them, now have to treat LGBT patients just like any other patient. For every American denied insurance just for being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, we passed health insurance reform, which will ban that kind of discrimination. We've expanded benefits for same-sex partners of federal employees, prohibited discrimination on the basis of gender identity for workers in the federal government. We've supported efforts in Congress to end the so-called Defense of Marriage Act. And as we wait for that law to be cast aside, we've stopped defending its constitutionality in the courts. We've put forward a strategy to promote and protect the rights of LGBT communities all over the world because, as Secretary Clinton said back in December, gay rights are human rights. And, of course, last year we finally put an end to Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So that nobody would ever have to, ever again, hide who they love in order to serve the country they love. And I know we've got some military members who are here today. I'm happy to see you with your partners here. We thank you for your service. We thank your families for their service. And we share your joy at being able to come with your spouses or partners here to the White House with your Commander-in-Chief. Now, we know we've got more to do. Americans may feel more comfortable bringing their partners to the office barbecue, but we're still waiting for a fully inclusive Employment Non-Discrimination Act. Congress needs to pass that legislation so that no American is ever fired simply for being gay or transgender. Americans may be able to serve openly in the military, but many are still growing up alone and afraid, picked on, pushed around for being different. And that's why my administration has worked to raise awareness about bullying. And I know I just had a chance to see Lee Hirsch, the director of Bully, who's here, and we thank him for his work on this issue. I want to acknowledge all the young leaders here today who are making such a big difference in their classrooms and in their communities. And you know, Americans may be still evolving when it comes to marriage equality, but But as I've indicated, personally, Michelle and I have made up our minds on this issue, and we believe So we still have a long way to go, but we will get there. We'll get there because of all of you. We'll get there because all the ordinary Americans who every day show extraordinary courage. We'll get there because of every man and woman and activist and ally who's moving us forward by the force of their moral arguments, but more importantly, by the force of their example. And as long as I have the privilege of being your president, I promise you, you won't just have a friend in the White House, you will have a fellow advocate for an America where no matter what you look like or where you come from or who you love, you can dream big dreams and dream as openly as you want. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America.
You heard it. You heard it. Your Commander-in-Chief. Now, again, a reminder that soon the United States Senate will be voting on Senate Bill 811. Senate Bill 811, which is called ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. And may I say that your senators across America need to hear from you how you feel about them passing a bill which would, in essence, could mean that your church may have to hire some homosexuals to participate in the clerical work or whatever it is that they may be required to do. At the present time, there are certain rules that prohibit that, but the Employment Non-Discrimination Act would go a lot broader in the area of who has to hire who. And, of course, as you see the history of the gay, transgender, bisexual, and all the other things under the LGBT label, well, I tell you what, folks, it's frightening. Because the moral values that your kids are learning in the public school are being processed with this mindset involved. It's called diversity. And if there's ever a time, I see Christian schools closing because they can't afford to keep them open because, well, people would rather put their kids in public schools where they learn this stuff. And if there's ever a time we need to be standing with our Christian schools across America, is not today's broadcast enough evidence that we need to be training our kids in the way that they should go? Just thought I'd ask the question. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to open our phone lines. In fact, we're opening them right now for your comments. 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. Let's hear where your heartbeat is today after what you have heard in the first half of the program. We'll be right back.
On a national level, the Secretary of Defense has warned of cyber terrorism and the devastation such an attack could bring. On a personal level, computers and the Internet continue to revolutionize the way we live. But is our increasing dependence on these technologies stealing our privacy and setting us up for a devastating fall? In the book Cyber Meltdown, biblical apologist Ron Rhodes addresses Bible prophecy and the imminent threat of cyber terrorism. He examines what a cyber attack in the U.S. would look like. What new technologies seem to be paving the way for fulfillment of end-times prophecies in the Bible? How terrorists and opposing nations are using cyberspace as a weapon? How computer viruses spread and personal privacy has been compromised. To obtain your copy of Cyber Meltdown, send a donation of $17 or more to VCY America, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. To donate by phone, call 1-800-729-9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. I have never seen the lines light up so quickly in my life here. All four lines exploded in about 5 seconds as you have picked up your phone to share your heart across America. And I want to thank you for taking the time to do so. And I also want to ask you to do something very special. Take the time. Don't let it slip by, but take the time to either write a note of thanks or a phone call to your local station. Now, if you're not a VCY America station, and there are many, many that are not, you have, I think, of the folk in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Tennessee Temple and WDYN. I think in terms of Pensacola Christian College and their vast radio network, Rejoice Radio, all of these plus many more, King of Kings Network and other networks that are carrying this program without charge to us because they feel this information is vitally needed. And so they are providing the airtime. They are providing the cost of keeping this program on the air. So they deserve your support. If you appreciate Crosstalk, then get behind your local station and let them know that you care. All right? Let's go right now to Tennessee, and Sean standing by in Tennessee. Hi, Sean.
Hey, and by the way, you're mentioning Tennessee Temple. Just a real quick comment to begin with. I hope for all of, for God's sake and for everyone here, that they never are forced to go through with that rule as well.
Well, we hope that none of us have to go through that because all of the broadcasting stations, you see, there used to be, Sean, a thing that they tried to put through called the Fairness Doctrine. 20 years ago, it was put aside. But the Fairness Doctrine would have required, after our doing this program today, in fact, at the halfway point, right now, I would have had to invited a homosexual and people who are advocates of homosexuality and that lifestyle to come on for the next half hour to share an opposing view. Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, Vic, I'm not at all surprised to see a lot of this going on around us. This is an absolute plague that's taking us over here, and it's exactly what took over Sodom and Gomorrah. And I'm going to tell people, they may not like to know this, but we are at that time and where God is fixing to judge us. Let me ask you, Sean, do you have a pen or pencil handy? Unfortunately, I don't right now. Well, listen carefully, because this is a number that we've given many times, but the U.S. Senate will be soon voting on Senate Bill 811, which is called the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. Yeah. Meaning that a Christian organization or other organization, if you have a man coming to work in a dress, you can't resist it. And I'm going to tell you. But let me, Sean, if you'll let me finish, the phone number for people to call their senators in Washington is area code 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. One final word there, Sean. I just want to say, Vic, ultimately, and it's just like my pastor says all the time out of West Virginia, ultimately the blame is with the church, okay? I'm not talking about the true believers like you or me or those who are doing what we ought to. I'm talking about the ones that have made it apostate. Well, let me say this, Sean, and this may sound like I'm being a little critical, but I would say this, that there are many good Bible-preaching churches that have never touched the subject of homosexuality and warning their children. It's something that you just don't talk about. And I hate like crazy to come on the air even to happen to mention it. But if we don't sound the trumpet and warning, if we don't sound the alarm, nobody's going to know about this thing. You heard now, goodness, 20 years ago I was doing talk radio here on this same station. Mm-hmm. And in those days, you would never have thought this would occur. Here you have the top leader of the free country, the free nation, a world leader, who is now advocating a lifestyle that the Bible condemns. Yeah, well, we have a broken church system. It's simply why we have all these problems. We have failed to speak out against it. Even in 1973, when abortion became legal, we failed about what happened recently in New York, and that's why, what more can we expect than all this garbage to happen? Sean, thank you so much. From Tennessee, we go to Mansfield, Pennsylvania, and talk with Ron. Ron, you're on the air.
Well, Vic, I feel your pain. I'm a retired federal agent, and I graduated from seminary in May 2008. And only about 3 or 4% of the population are gay, LGBT, or whatever you call it. And the president was obviously in full re-election campaign mode.
Yes.
But what I can't stand, I'm an Episcopalian, and our bishop voted to ordain the openly gay Vic Jean Robinson as Bishop of New Hampshire. And the vote was 55 to 35. So our Episcopal Church here in Mansfield withheld our monthly fair share money in opposition. And he came, and I was on the vestry. I was clerk of the vestry. And he said, well, we prayerfully considered this in the House of Bishops, and then I had to vote to ordain Vic Jean Robinson because he was in a loving, committed relationship. And I said, hey, what if he had something for his dog? You know, I said, look at Leviticus 18:22. He said, now, see, you're a student in seminary, and you don't know that that's not the New Testament, the loving God, Christ, and all that. I said, well, try Romans 1:27.
Amen.
And I said, I'm a farmer. I'm with 60 acres of land, and if I had 500 roosters out there, I'd get no eggs and no little peeps. And when Adam said he was lonely, why didn't God just make another Adam if that was the way to go? And he has shunned me ever since.
Ron, thank you. From Mansfield, Pennsylvania. Let's go to Valerie in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Valerie. Our phone number, 800-733-9829. Valerie, you're on the air.
Hi, I just have a question. It's a little sarcastic, but when I heard the president's speech at the end, he said, God bless America. Well, did God really bless Sodom and Gomorrah? I mean, what's going to happen if America gets like Sodom and Gomorrah gets?
You know, when I heard that God bless America thing, right along with advocating what God calls an abomination, it struck fear to my heart. And folks, if you want to read what happens when you take the things of God and corrupt them with sin, look at Belshazzar's feast. And you remember they had conquered Israel. They had taken all the holy things from the temple, and they had put them in a warehouse, and they finally brought those elements out, those gold elements, and they filled them with liquor and were drinking and debauchery. And God, with that hand, wrote on the wall, you are weighed in the balance and found wanting. And folks, I am absolutely convinced that God, somewhere in the not-too-distant future, is going to be writing that on America.
Yeah, I'm just afraid what's going to happen, because God, judges,
God bless you, Valerie. Thank you so much for the call. From Milwaukee, we'll go to Gainesville, Florida. Our phone number is 800-733-9829. Have a vacant line right now as well. Let's go to Garrett in Gainesville, Florida. Garrett, you're on the air.
Yeah. I'd like to know if you are for making homosexuality.
Sir, I'm sorry. Okay, our connection was interrupted. Let's go to Mike in Bayview, Wisconsin. And Mike, you are on the air.
Yeah, hi, Vic. This just makes me sick, this president. But there's a couple books out here I just received in the last couple of weeks from a gentleman that I get flags from, and he handed me these two books, and it says Barack Obama's Rules for Revolution, the Saul Alinsky model. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try to get these two books to you. I know somebody else that works there that comes in quite often.
I tell you what, I have the books here already.
You do?
Yes, dealing with the Saul Alinsky training that he had. Yes.
It's like a 40-page pamphlet. Mm-hmm. And there's another one that says From Shadow Party to Shadow Government, and George Soros has got a lot to do with it. And these two books tell you exactly what's happening. I mean, they're just shoving it right down our throat. And I think the only way we can clean this mess up, besides praying hard to God, and
yes,
and I believe the abortion thing with 50 million babies being murdered, God's turning his head on this country. And I think we need a bulldozer in that White House to clean it all out. I mean, it's all corrupt. Something's got to be done, and before the good Lord does strike this place down, and I don't see it far off, to tell you the truth.
Thank you, Michael. Mike from Florida. We have Michael in Pensacola, Florida. Michael, you're on the air. I misread that. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes, sir.
You're on the air.
Yes, sir. What I wanted to say was seemed like Barack Obama was at the speech he gave. That was a politician talking. But listen, our problem in America is this right here. It's called sin. And if it was not for sin, we wouldn't be in this predicament we're in right now. And that comes from the home and the church.
Now, let me ask a question. You said it sounded like a politician talking. Can't politicians be sinful?
Sure, of course you could.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Of course. Right now, we're in office right now, in the Senate and Congress, we have gay politicians and straight politicians. We're just a nation that's, we just go for anything.
And it appears that we have a leader who is in the same vein.
Yeah, that's it. That's true. But, all these guys coming up, they're just shaking, Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. From Pensacola, Florida, we're going to go to Jerry in Milwaukee. Jerry, you're on the air.
Okay. Hi, Vic. How are you doing today?
Fine, sir.
I just wanted to make a couple comments and a couple questions. First of all, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate your ministry, and I do support it. Listening to a lot of the comments over the past several really months, if not years, you can obviously tell that God's judgment and wrath will be coming, upon our nation, and obviously that concerns me. But besides just calling our senators and praying for our nation, Vic, is there anything else we can do to avoid this judgment that's going to be coming down?
Well, sir, let me just say this: there are always choices that have to be made in our republic style of government. I cannot and will not tell you where to cast your vote. I can't. The organization here is a non-profit organization. We can talk about the affairs of the people who are running for office. You have to make your own conclusions as to what you want for America. But the issue, one of the shocking things in the Christian communities, there are sometimes 50% of the Christians don't even vote.
Yeah.
And there's no excuse. I mean, if you're not happy with the decision of what happens or the leadership we get, what about those that are sitting on their laurels, not even coming to vote when it's election time?
Yep.
And
what about those of us that are praying for the best for our nation?
Yes.
But obviously we can see things still continuing to go downward.
Well, we need to talk to and there's nothing partisan about promoting people to get to the ballot box and vote. There certainly is not. And and you talk to Matt Staver, there are issues that pastors can talk about that deal with the morality of our country. And you heard, as I heard just moments ago, when the president of our country said that the people of the gay pride mentality have bent the moral universe. They've bent the moral universe of our society. Lord help us. We'll be right back. Thanks for being with us, Jerry. Appreciate it.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Today we continue on our list of 20 characteristics of false teachers. Number 14 is false teachers rise from within the church and seek to infiltrate the true church. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 1 speaks to this, but there were also false prophets among the people, even as there will be false prophets among you, who will secretly bring in destructive heresies, even denying the Lord who bought them, and bring on themselves swift destruction. Jude 4, for certain men have crept in unnoticed, who long ago were marked out for this condemnation, ungodly men, who turn the grace of our God into lewdness and deny the only Lord God and our Lord Jesus Christ. Acts 20:30, also from among yourselves men will rise up, speaking perverse things, to draw away the disciples after themselves. 2 Peter 2:1, Jude 4, and Acts 20:30 tell us false teachers try to infiltrate the church and rise from within, so we must mark them and be on guard.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where our phone lines are absolutely exploding with calls coming through here. Your calls are always welcome, 800-733-9829. Bent the archway of our moral universe. Bent the archway of our moral universe. What? I'm speechless. I don't know how to address that one except to say, need I say more? It's more than bent it. It's literally broken it. Let's go right now to Jack in Mequon, Wisconsin. Jack, you're very patient. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Vic Eliason, thank you for your show. I listen to it every day. I don't hardly know what to say. But I just how we putting our fist in our mouth for face. It just, and being born in a country as this, I'm a black person, and I know, how we were treated because I was born down south. And I thank the Lord for all of my freedom. And my mother was 60-some years old before she got the vote. But I just, when a God going to get angry at us, putting our fist in his face, just look like we are doing everything we can to revoke him to anger.
Jack, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, when will God get angry? I believe he is. We have done everything we can, as Jack well put it, to provoke him to anger. How much more of an insult dare we consider that's coming from our national leaders? And there are those who say be prepared for God's judgment. Let's go to Brad in West Allis, Wisconsin. Brad, you're on the air.
Hi, Vic.
Yes, sir.
We got to ask for God's mercy on this, but I just want to say one thing about the archway of morality that you say they've bent and broken. They've broken themselves on it.
Yes.
The thing that ticks me off is they're trying to take us along for the ride and my country along for the ride, which I don't appreciate. But what I wanted to say besides that, people say, well, it's okay as long as it's a loving relationship. Well, God couldn't care less about it being a loving relationship. The Bible doesn't say a word about it being a loving relationship with regard to sodomy. It's all sin. It's all wrong. And as far as Obama goes, this is proof. What he did is proof that he's not a Christian. That means he lied when he called himself one. And his presence in the White House is also proof that God is removing his protective hand from this nation, and we need his mercy instead.
God bless you, Brad. Thank you so much. Plymouth, Wisconsin. Jim, you're on the air. Jim?
Yeah, I was wondering what Senate bill was that you were recommending that we call our senators about?
It's U.S. Senate Bill 811. It's called ENDA. That's the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which, if it is passed, will insist that even, I believe, this is my personal beliefs, that even in religious organizations, you will be required to honor the applications of people who may, it could be a man who feels feminine, wants to come to work in a dress, people who have identities, they identify themselves as one gender, or could be even they identify themselves today as male and tomorrow as a female. But you cannot discriminate. You cannot, if someone comes into, here you are, if you had someone, a pastor, you heard the dear brother who just called, heartbroken because a bishop ordained a homosexual. And how far do we go? Jim?
Yeah, so we definitely should vote no on this bill, U.S. Bill 811.
811. That is standing right, and 811, if it goes through, could spell havoc for Christian colleges, universities, day schools, ministries of all kinds.
One thing I wanted to say was I was wondering, well, why has our country gone this far? My serious, some of my thoughts would be...
you know why, Jim? The reason it has is because the church has not been the church. We've been so busy with our toys. We've been so busy with our Pollyanna programs, making daisy chains, while people are going over the abyss, dying in their sins, and the church has just been too busy making daisy chains. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Brandy in Illinois, very quickly, you're on the air.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I think a lot like you. I think our biggest problem right now is we as a Christian, a lot of us Christians have compromised. We sit in churches every Sunday morning that support homosexuality and abortion, and we do nothing about it. We continue to sit in there every Sunday. And then when we go to the polls, we pick the lesser of two evils. And myself, I'm done doing that. I refuse to compromise anymore. So thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Brandy from Illinois. Appreciate the call. David in Wisconsin. David, you got a few seconds. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to say that I just wish that the administration would put as much effort into taking care of our elderly as they put forth into taking care of the gay community and their health issues.
Okay, thank you, David. And Janine in Milwaukee. You're on the air, Janine.
Oh, yes, Vic, I just wanted to say we have to start telling people the truth straight from the Bible. And I remember a couple of years ago, a young man called in. He was a homosexual, and you led him to Christ.
That's correct. Thank you, Janine. Appreciate that, remembering that God was the one who spoke to his heart. Well, folks, we are practically out of time here, and I want to thank you for calling. But please, as I mentioned a moment ago, that bill in the Senate could really be devastating. And if thousands of you, and there are thousands of you out there with 90-some radio stations, we know if there was 100 people in each station listening, that would be 9,000 people. And wouldn't it be wonderful if 9,000 people came to the Senate today on the phone? The Senate bill is S-811, which is the ENDA bill. And the issue of that bill going through is what could really cause the problem. So there are people saying, please, do not pass ENDA. It will bring harm to our culture. The phone number, if you want to call your senators, is 202-224-3121. That number again is area code 202-224-3121. And talk to your senator. Let him know that you hired him, all right? You put him in office. Call there, let him know what state you're from, and let him know what you think. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
Listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.